Hey Blurties, hey Fandom Fam, it's me, Imani, your childcare inspirer. It's been so long and I'm so happy to be able to return back. I'm trying my best here because even though this is beautiful weather outside, my glasses are tinted, so I'm trying my best to read my script over here, but I'm so glad to be able to return. I'll explain where I've been and why it ties into what my theme for this month is. So basically, it is the month of May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month. And one of the biggest things I think a lot of people tend to ignore is that childcare workers are going through something that's called childcare burnout, which is a real thing. And I am going to break it down for you. So here we go. So, childcare is one of the most important jobs in the world, but it's also one of the most exhausting and least supported jobs. Like, childcare is probably very, is a low paid job with a lot of high stress. I've worked in it for a school for about a year, and as much as I really loved that job, it really hurt me a lot for what happened and what led to me having to say goodbye. The truth is that a lot of childcare teachers, they're silently struggling, and sometimes they even could raise those concerns, but it could still be difficult in order to be able to share those kinds of concerns because of how much of a demand and need for childcare teachers, and also could contribute to the turnabout rate for a lot of teachers having to leave. So the reason why it took me so long to return is because I loved my job working at the school, as I used to call it. And there was one day that there was an incident with a child, and I talked with the parents. The parents had made a complaint, and then the next day, when I was talking to teachers, explaining about what happened, and them, explaining about what I could have done a little bit better. They also mentioned another issue that there had been a lot of instances, having to do with kids in my classroom. Like, they actually, if I can remember correctly, they actually said the word that every child had been hurt in my class, and that scared me. That made me really upset. And I also was starting a second job to try to help me out, which was an overnight job, but it was a conflict of schedule. So between getting this news, trying to find a way to balance out the second job, I got really nervous. And the first thing I did was I was going to try and take some time off. And I had put my time in to take time off, and I had let them know that I think I need some time off. They allowed me to take the day off, for that time. But then they were expecting me to return back. And I was trying to let them know that I just need a few weeks away in order to get myself together, in order to be more mentally prepared for this. Because you just told me some shocking news, and I feel like maybe I'm not, in a place to be, looking after my classroom, because I was a lead teacher of a classroom at the time. I mean, I was sharing classroom with another teacher, but still, I was kind of a lead teacher over my group. And I was still devastated by that news. And so I tried talking to him about that. It didn't work. It fell through. And I even tried including HR, and that fell through as well. And unfortunately, I had to let them know that I don't think I'm in a place to be able to continue with the class, and that whatever that needs to be done, I'm still taking that time away. So they basically terminated me. Like, I don't know whether to call it, whether it was fired or to say I quit. They just always use the word termination, and ended up losing a lot of stuff connected to that. Like, even though it's something that I moved on from, it still kind of hurts, as you can tell. And so that's why I'm making such a big deal about this, because it was something that I realized was just, I was going through a moment of childcare burnout. And I think it just got to me. And the fact that I had to, walk away from a job that I really enjoyed, that I found purpose in, is, something that hurts me. And I hope that it's a story that can help others. So, trying to get rid of the waterworks. You see, my glasses are hiding, my sad eyes. And we're going to continue on, and I'll explain a little bit more about, this thing known as childcare burnout. So let's talk about it, and I'll let you know why something like this is happening. I feel happening in this field that maybe childcare workers might not know about, or even parents definitely probably not know about. So basically, according to K through 12 Dive, nearly 45% of early childcare educators had reported having a high burnout and stress rate. The burnout rate for childcare can reach between 17% to 44% annually, according to the Jim Bula blog. And around 90% of childcare staff have reported working overtime, according to Family. which I'm pretty sure is like another source that's do research within childcare and the child early education. So basically, burnout isn't just about being tired. It's what happens when stress becomes a constant without a relief. There's emotional exhaustion. There's, mental overload. Like you're trying to keep your mind going. You're trying to keep things moving, in order to educate children, make sure that to follow into a schedule, things don't fall behind, kids getting naps, kids getting changed, kids getting fed. You know, it's just, it is a lot. And I know a lot of people be like, well, moms do that all the time. Well, moms could go through the same thing. You probably won't even realize it. It's a lot of, there's also the loss of patience. Like you just it's just so much is going on. You're trying to think of so much. Sometimes you try to yell out for help, but they're busy helping out another classroom, or staff is conducting a tour, and so they can't reach your classroom on in the time that you may need it. You could be missing stuff in your classroom that you call for, but you still have to wait because of low supplies. You prepare with your supplies, but you still run out. Like nobody's perfect, and it just you have that feeling of disconnection. Even when you're around your staff, you just feel kind of like a dazed, and just kind of moving in with the motions. Sorry, the wind's blowing my phone. Moving in with the motions of the day without really taking in and being like present in what you're doing. You're just following along, and just can't mentally process where you are. And this is not personal failures on you. This is just the conditions of the work. Even if you work at probably the best childcare facility out there, I'm pretty sure that there'll be teachers there that say that they have run into days or maybe even like weeks where they feel overloaded and overwhelmed. So childcare fatigue or childcare burnout is different. It's the constant supervision. You don't really have a mental health break. I mean, there's your lunch, but it's like you have to take your mind back into that environment as soon as you have to return back to class. you know and even when kids are napping, they say that that's like the time that you could just unwind. You're not really unwinding, because while kids are napping, you're cleaning up your room, you're making sure things are organized, so you're still ripping and running even when the kids are napping, making sure that they're all right while they're laying down. Just because they're sleeping, it doesn't mean that anything doesn't mean that nothing can go wrong. There's also the physical demand. We're constantly lifting kids, constantly cleaning up, we're moving things around, moving furniture around, chasing after kids, making sure one kid's not biting one, making sure a kid's not hitting one, trying to make sure kids aren't throwing toys at other kids. And I may not have worked in preschool a lot, at that time. I'll explain more a little bit later about my current situation. But at the time, even I was working in preschool, I had one time I was in the preschool class, and it's still as much a little bit more high energy than working with toddlers, and definitely, and even when working with infants, you still have to keep up their schedules. Make sure this one gets a bottle at this time. Make sure the kid gets changed at that time. It's like staggering different schedules at once. So you're trying to keep up that demand, and and make sure that you're doing not going too fast or too slow. It's just, a lot to contribute mentally and emotionally and mentally, trying to keep that level, as well as making sure that all the kids in your vicinity is okay. And there's also the high expectations with low support, because we have to be ready at all times, making sure that kids are safe. And above everything, you have to make sure that a child is in a safe, in a safe learning environment. So we have to make sure that kids are safe above all else, as well as having to deal with supplies, getting sure they need. But at the same time, childcare workers are not getting paid enough to maintain. Look at the time that we're living in now, and childcare workers, most of them are being paid around $15 or $16 an hour. I worked for $16 an hour. So and like I've seen rates of other schools. There was a time before I got my job at school, when I was doing the rounds for interviews. There's a school that was going to offer me $13 an hour to work for them, and I have a bachelor's degree. So the fact that they were trying to offer me $13 while having a bachelor's degree, which was the same rate they start with everyone, like that was still completely unbelievable to me. Like even I may have been someone starting out, but at least had some education, and they were still willing to just pay me just a rate that someone probably working at a cash register, like a teenager working at a cash register, would give for a summer job. I'm just guessing. I'm not sure, but that's just how it felt to me. So what many childcare teachers, so, a quote that I've seen from Springer Nature Link, it says, research showed that burnout comes from high demand with low resources. And that's exactly why that's exactly what many childcare teachers have faced. So basically, it affects this burnout, it builds up and it can lead to anxiety, irritability, depression, emotional numbness, and a lot of these, I'm pretty sure, I don't know how many, but I know that a lot of child care workers, why am I saying workers? They're teachers. They're caregivers. They're not workers. They're a little bit more than that. A lot of these teachers, may have families of their own, and they're bringing that stress with them when they return home. And that's really something that we don't really think about. You know, being a childcare worker is just more than playing with children. People say play with children, but it's more than playing with children. Just keep that in mind. And so, a quote that I found from Care Path, from Childcare Path, is that it may even affect how teachers interact with children with less patience, less energy, as well as less engagement. So not only is it affecting how you are with yourself and maybe in your personal life, it's also affecting the position that you're in and how you're working with other children. Like I sadly had mentioned before, there was an incident, the incident that had led to, seeing had led to like seeing like how I was interacting uh, with my class, with like, maybe low supervision, having to, work with one child and not be able to, look up for the rest of my class. It's just something that had really weighed on me a lot at that moment, and it still, as you can see, really affected me even after, such a long time. So it doesn't mean that they don't care. It just means that they're running on empty. We're, as childcare, teachers and educators, are running on empty. And so the advice that I found and tips on having to cope, you know, as a childcare teacher, something I hope that you guys could share, is that there's no unrealistic self care, but it's just to know that real things do help. Sometimes just take a moment of silence when you return home from work. Just take that moment to yourself to just, you're spend all day in noise, so you just have to take the time and just sit and just away from the noise. Even sitting out here in the sun, just enjoying the trees, the wind, that's more than enough just there starting out. You could give yourself some transition time before going home. So maybe even after the day has ended and you're getting yourself together, and all the kids are being picked up, just get your time to just relax. Give yourself like maybe a structured routine of what you do, that you won't put any stress on yourself as you're getting yourself together to leave for the day. There, also be sure to set small boundaries. It doesn't have to be like really grand. Sometimes it can be something as simple as, you know, on my break, I like to take at least maybe 5 to 10 minutes to myself, maybe sitting outside enjoying a part of my lunch. And then I can spend the rest of my break maybe sitting down with my coworkers who I shared my lunch break with. Just take that small moment to just, set some side time for yourself to, kind of just take in and let things just settle without feeling like you're ripping and roaring even during your lunch break. And then you can find other coworkers to decompress, co-teachers to decompress with. And, you know, they feel the same kind of stress that you do. It could be at different levels, but they know the stress. So you could just take that time to just sit with them, or they could sit with you and just, kind of explain like, this is going on with me. And I don't know if I'm doing, the right thing with this. And they could probably share some, advice, and you can share your advice. And of course, reduce overstimulation when you can. Like I said, it's a lot of noise, a lot of colors, a lot of attention going this way, that way, paying attention here, there, this, that, up, down. And so, maybe when you take that time to relaxing, just take that moment to maybe just look at a wall or maybe just find like something calming that's, for calming music, to just relax and just sit, meditate on the Lord if that's something that you want to do or something that you are used to do. Just sit and just think of how good things are. Just let your mind rest while you're resting. When we do breaks, like I think we just so focused on getting to eat and getting to talk, we don't take the time to just sit and just rest in the time that we have. Like small resets matter more than big routines that you don't have time for. Save the large routines for your off days, but that doesn't mean that you can't create a small routine for yourself on those days that you have to, be in and be the best teacher you can for your little ones. And parents can help with this too. Like when the thing that I think a lot of people don't seem to uh, really know when it comes to working in childcare is that is a need to build like a relationship or a partnership between childcare teachers and parents. Like you're working together for the child. They're not just dumping a child on you to take care of for a couple hours before they get them or when they're ready to get them. They need to work together in order to help that child grow and develop at home just as much as they expect the teachers to do it when they're at school. So, sometimes the parents just being supportive if they can, doing something as simple as just saying thank you, that really does make a big impact. Understanding about being understanding about small minor stuff, communicating with a respectful manner. Like, we already feel like there's pressure on us. So if we have a parent that's reacting angrily at us, it could really affect us as well. Like even if a parent has a right angry, like it would be if a parent just marching up to a school and threatening a teacher. Like I don't know how often that happens, but I wouldn't be surprised that it's happened. So sometimes it's better to try to talk through a conflict before it escalates to something that could go beyond a level that needs to be, and also give trust to a teacher. If we feel like that our parents can't trust us with our job, we start to not trust ourselves with our job. So just being able to build that connection, these things are simple, but being able to do those steps to build that connection really does help. And also to remember to avoid the pressure for perfection. Like I said, parents are going to, parents, you are, expecting us to be the best teachers that we can for our kids, but we're human just like you are. So please, if things aren't just working at a pace and working as quickly as you expect it to, don't be on us that it's not working out. Talk with us of what you could do to help, or maybe be open to the advice of what we are able to do to help. And also, lastly, for staff and also for the centers as a whole, there are ways that we can support each other, whenever we have those low days of being overloaded and over stressed out. Make sure to check into coworkers, normalize when you're feeling overwhelmed. Like that is a big thing, and I think that that's something that I had neglected myself. Like I never really got into the point of feeling like I'm overwhelmed or letting them know. So, you know, I want to make it be able to feel like I'm in an environment that I can feel like I can say that I'm overwhelmed, or remember in my head that I could say that I'm overwhelmed, as well as share responsibilities when possible, advocate for breaks and realistic expectations. And support shouldn't only have to come from the top, from their supervisors or from the higher ups over the district that your school is in. It should also come from each other as well, working well with each other. And, that's just something to just keep in mind. I'm not just trying to compare this whole thing to my own experience. I'm just sharing about ways that could help other people in whatever experience, because no situation is the same. And, you might have some issues that might be different from others, but I'm just hoping that some of these small things might be able to help in some way, shape, or form. So that was my video. It ran a little bit long, but, I just wanted to share as much as I can about this. I'm going to be sharing more videos about mental health awareness, as well as spreading a little bit more about childcare burnout throughout the month of May. And I hope you guys are really taking your mental health a little bit seriously and not disregarding it. So, you guys, just thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for being patient with me and sticking with me. And I just hope that you guys are just taking that time. And if anyone from the school is still looking at my social media, I just say that thank you guys so much from the bottom of my heart for giving me, a person who's first time doing this, a chance, helping me to find my purpose of what am I doing. And I'm really sorry about how things have ended up. I didn't get really a chance to say that I was sorry. And I hope that it doesn't reflect too poorly on me as a child care teacher, because I really do want to be the best one I can as what for whatever things I have planned to come. Like I do have plans, but I just wanted to show that I didn't mean to leave the way that I did, and I miss the kids, miss you guys, and I don't want to just see, look at me, and I don't want to like feel like I have failed to any of you, any of the kids, any of the parents, any of my fellow teachers, the higher ups. I'm sorry for that. But you guys are in my heart. I'm praying for you guys, and I just thank you so much for allowing me to have a chance to discover something really wonderful that I could do with my life. So thank you guys so much. Try not to cry. And I'm gonna be heading back inside, and I hope to see you all. Remember to stay blessed and beautiful, fear less, care more, and have the loveliest of lovely days. Bye.